Hi, how are you? There is much to talk about effectiveness and productivity, and two of them has really bugged me lately. The first one is not very new. It's the slogan that get up hour earlier before anybody else and get up hour earlier than you normally should or would. So create a sleep deprivation for yourself. That doesn't sound very good. And the other one is that schedule your day. Schedule the whole 24 hours to 15-minute slots. So you don't have any time to waste. Every 15-minute slot, whether you are in an elevator or in a lobby waiting for a dentist, you have all the time something to do, something productive, something that is useful. But we can discuss about that in another video. But what happens when you wake up an hour earlier, but do not go to sleep an hour earlier? Very few people go to sleep in the evening and then wake up 5 minutes before the alarm clock goes off. So they have slept enough and they feel rested and they feel relaxed to start a new day. But if you're not in that group, or even if you have, and you switch the clock to alarm an hour earlier, then you create a sleep deprivation for yourself. 1 hour in every day of the week. Of course, if you follow these productivity gurus, you don't skip the weekend, so you wake up at the same time in the weekend too, so you can be more productive in the weekend. But even if you do not put that all on the weekend, then you can think that, okay, I sleep it in during weekend, but that doesn't require, that's not enough. If you skip every day an hour sleep, you cannot in one day sleep it in. It doesn't work that way. Our heads are not wired that way. But what happens when you create this sleep deprivation for yourself? Well, first of all, you start to lose your immune system. So you get a flu and everything else that is going around more often than you used to. And when you are in a flu, you are not so productive. So you lose easily a few weeks of productive time with the flu. And when you don't sleep as much, you have to pump in extra energy to be awake, to act normally, so your adrenaline goes up. And when your adrenaline goes up, your blood pressure goes up, slowly but surely. But that stays up. It doesn't come down when you calm down. It stays up and it bugs slowly but surely your vision and your brain and your body, everywhere. So now you have a hardened blood pressure and you're a little bit tired all the time. And from those, unfortunately, can develop heart diseases, real heart diseases. Because when you're tired all the time, you want sugar. When you're tired all the time, you skip exercise. And due to this, you gain weight. And when you gain weight a little, you feel a little bit depressed. When you gain a little more, then you don't want to go to exercising anymore because it doesn't feel nice. And you don't feel yourself. And you don't feel comfortable being in these tight gymmy clothes or walking or running around. And so you gain weight a little bit more. And it starts to be depressing. Well, in addition to those, of course, your motor skills are going to suffer at some point. I noticed this really cruelly when I had the insomnia for a while. I had driven a bicycle for a long time, and then I was really in a hurry to go just there and back. And I thought that I'd take my daughter's bicycle and go. But when I started to paddle, I realized that I was not so sure that I was going to stay up I was afraid that I am going to fall because my vision wasn't very good and my balance wasn't very good. So I was really scared, like driving to the store and back with that bicycle. And I realized that this is something that I wouldn't have noticed if I wouldn't have driven the bicycle. And of course, if you don't drive bicycle anymore because you know that this is not good for me, but you walk and you take a step and there is a stone. Normally you would just correct it like this, but because your reaction time is getting longer and longer and longer, you don't correct it, you just fall. And that's, for starters, embarrassing, of course. There is nothing obvious to fall for. But you can also break your arm. And that's not very productive, to be like 6 weeks with the band-aids and with the pain medication and everything. So there goes your productivity again. And of course, you start to forget things. You start to lose your concentration. So when you are at work, you have to check and double check, and you start to be afraid that you forget something, and sooner or later you will. And then you are anxious and think that, oh God, what else can I forget? And you have to make lists and check and double check, and that's not very productive either. Now you are wasting your time in checking and checking and checking, and you feel anxious. And you are not yourself anymore, and you don't look yourself anymore. The picture in the mirror is it's not what it used to be 2 years ago, but it shouldn't look like this. And you think that what's wrong with my memory? Am I getting old? Am I having some kind of Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that? Because I can't remember, I can't be sure. Did I do it or didn't I do it? And I get depressed. Who am I? Why am I thinking like this? Why am I not functioning? When I try to get up in the morning, I'm drowsy, so I have to drink extra amount of coffee or some pills that make me feel better, that make me feel really energetic. And that's not good for your head, and that's not good for your heart. And you cannot live without your head on your heart. Our brain needs rest. It desperately needs that. It needs calm and quiet as much as it needs the hard nudges that we try to do and think and think and think and think. It needs both. But nights are extra special, like important, because then our brain cleans itself. And if it doesn't have time to clean itself, you develop brain diseases, not necessarily like simultaneously, but slowly but surely. That's what the neurologists say. And if you take a sleeping pill of some kind, it will slow the cleaning process. So your brain doesn't clean itself as effectively as it does when you are like this naturally sleep. And don't get me wrong, I really am pro sleep medication, because when you have like got into a situation that you cannot sleep, it's better to sleep with the sleep medication than not at all. But simultaneously, you have to try to find a way to get yourself sleep like normally again, without any sleeping pills. I know that there are allergic medications that you can take that have this side effect, that they make you very drowsy and they help you to sleep. But nevertheless, if you take them all the time, your brain never cleans itself properly. And I'm afraid what might happen if I have to do that. Or even melatonin. Plus melatonin doesn't like function very long time. In one study suggested that it's 3 months and then it wears off. It doesn't matter how much you think you take them, it doesn't work that way anymore. It's a too big a sacrifice to wake up hour early and sacrifice your health and your mental health and in the end, your social network. Because of course, you start to be grumpy to people around you. You don't have your kids do something and you are annoyed immediately because they disturb you. Your spouse does something stupid all the time when you're tired and grumpy, or it feels like that. So you might lose your family in the end. And many people say that I'm going to work like a crazy for 10 years or 20 years, and then I'm going to retire, and then I have all the time for my family and for my friends and everything and for my children. Well, first of all, if you are alive in 20 years, you may do all that. Second, if something happens like in the world, that happens all the time, all the money that you can get in 20 years might not be enough for you to retire after that. And third, in 20 years, your children will be 20 years older than they are now. So they have kids of their own, or they really don't care what you want, or do you have time for them, because they don't have time for you, because they have their own life like they should. And your spouse has gone away. Or if they are there, they do not really love you anymore because you are something totally different than they committed to. And you lose the one thing that is most important to us. Social connections, meaningful ones. So I don't believe or think ever about the possibility of work like a crazy in 20 years. I think it's more like, what if I die tomorrow? Have I lived? Have I lived the life that I want to live? But don't skip the hour sleep. Sleep hour extra, in the weekends at least. But that was all for now. I hope you have a great day. I see you soon. Goodbye.